Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is Saturday, September 6th. Um, I got a big hype button update. The hype button, you only have a certain amount of hype points. Someone wrote here, I hyped last video, but no opinion. This is on this video, YouTube. Um, no option on this video on YouTube. I believe the hype feature is a beta test. I've only gotten hype option once on your videos, and I hyped. No hype button today, fuckers. Hi, Paul. I can't verify your last video. Did have the hype button. I hyped it. I can verify it. No hype button for me. So this is, I think, is this today's video? Um, yeah. The video I made yesterday about Big Pharma, political shills, fake anger at RFK Jr., Don Lemons loves him, Marjorie Taylor Greene. So there's no hype button on that for some people. I don't see a hype button. Um, and then there's hyped like hell. Just scrolling through the comments here. Uh, Thanks for the videos, Paul. Hype button pressed. And someone wrote, that was brilliant, Paul. Thank you, Paul. We've groomed for martial law for years. Trump is just, I see that was one. So, just used all my hype button for video. Hyped, liked, and commented for the algo. Great for your work. Hyped and always grateful. Smashed the like button. Then I smashed the hype button. There's a lot of smashing of buttons going on. That's what they say. That's why people say that shit. Um, Smash the like button. Uh, there was something I gotta scroll here down. I guess smash the hype button. Um, Hyped up today. The hype button on YouTube app on my iPhone is located when you swipe to the left, and the comment bar is in the side menu. There's also something else when I was watching the videos about hype, and I didn't really think about it too much. Yes, Paul, let's hype the shit out of this. And so there was some comments where people were talking about they used all of their hype points. Hyped, yay. Hyped. This is someone else wrote hyped. Hype smashed. Smashed. I just broke the hype button. So this is, good response. But people say, I hyped you 130 points. Someone's wrote that. And, I kind of didn't pay attention because I don't. But I'm watching these videos about the hype stuff. And you only have a certain amount of hyped points. And then someone else wrote below that here somewhere. I saw this last night. I just typed the F out of the hype button. I fully support this channel, hype button or not. I'm all in. Somebody left some money too, $15, which is great for the channel. Smash the hype button for the last best comment creator ever. I just blew my whole weekly hype load on the left. Nothing for the hype hoax, but Paul hopes this makes you. Does this make me gay now? Which is funny. So you have a certain amount of hype points. So we got to focus on like the better videos. So they just want to make me work. That's the thing. There's just things I won't do. It just feels wrong. And that's why I don't talk about subscribe and do all this shit and all that stuff. But I got to kind of figure out what videos are really good and which ones could be more popular. And you get only so many hype points per week, and I don't know if people want to spend them all on my channel because whatever. You guys have your various channels you like. But you gotta now you have to manage your hype points. And so let me just look at my videos to see if there's any difference in the view count since the whole hype thing came out. So no, so my videos they've got 1,700 views. So I think the videos that were hyped, if I go back through here, they only got 1,700 views. So there's two in a row that only have 1,700 views. So the hype button is actually working in the reverse because I have a video. People think Trump died. Got 3,400 views, and the video before that got 2,800 views. What the people don't know about Good versus Evil got 2,559 views. The next video, Don Lemon's Master of Embarrassment, got 2,100 views. Then the one with Barrison Don Lemons and got 1,700 views. And the one that said Florida has supported Israel. Whenever you include Israel in the title, it got 1,700 views. So, anyways, I don't know about the hype button. Like, I don't know if it hasn't shown any results because these last couple of videos where people would have been hyping them. If I go through the comments, it would be. I could just go see which videos were hyped here. The people saying, people were hyping these buttons and it's got less views than normal. YouTube sucks with this stuff. Like fucking, it's a way to keep people engaged, to make you feel like you're powerful. But the hype fucking thing. My video should have more views, right? If people are actually hyping the video, and I don't even know if I can find out how much it's hyped, how many hype points I get. I do a long voiceover about the futility. I'm feeling the futility of life right now, and not in a bad way because I'm happy. Like I'm happier as I've ever been. But there's just a lot of just. It all seems kind of pointless. Not that you have to quit, but there's. It's just I talk about the end of the video. It's a kind of an interesting voiceover I did last night, and hopefully I'll remember to put it in because that's always a possibility. When I was thinking about a couple things happened, I started watching the wrestling stuff, the WWE, WWF stuff, the WWE documentary on Netflix. It's been up for about a month, and and it's a follow up to the Vince McMahon debacle, and so they have a new era where the guy Triple H, I forget what his real name is. He married Vince McMahon's daughter, Stephanie, and he now runs the WWE. And they had a deal with Netflix to put on the Royal Rumble or one of these fucking things, right? And, they get behind the scenes and they do these intense interviews. It's well done. These documentaries are, I really enjoy these documentaries because, they're based in the kind of truther model, where you get more, more real, more authenticism. See behind the scenes. They pull the curtain back a little bit, and they have this thing called the Gorilla Monsoon Room, or the Gorilla Room, or the Gorilla the Gorilla location. I forget what it's called. Gorilla something, and it's not important. But there's this guy named Gorilla Monsoon, who's a big fat wrestler when I was a kid. This emanated out of the region I grew up in. Vince McMahon, the wrestling. There was wrestling all across the country. They all had their local wrestlers. And Vince McMahon was in my region in Connecticut. So I grew up with the Vince McMahon stuff. And he, took this into he became the national guy. It made this into a multi-billion-dollar, industry. And he's a scumbag. And I'm watching the documentary, and then I realized Vince McMahon got outed for sexually harassing and abusing his staff. Some of the female wrestlers. And a bunch of other creepy stuff. Now, his daughter Stephanie was, she was willing to do anything. His son, not so much, but his son put himself at risk in some of these, wrestling stunts, right? Like these guys are really getting hurt, and they show you like this stuff. These guys have a ladder match, and the guy flips over on a fucking ladder. Like they're multiple ladders. They have these belts on top of a ladder, and you have to climb up the ladder to get them. But there's all these ladders being used to fucking fall on and hit the other guy with and all this shit, right? And sometimes the thing backfires, the guy gets hurt, right? People get hurt. This one girl was wrestling, and she was wrestling with a broken arm. And she finished the bit, the scripted bit. And they get behind this Gorilla Monsoon was this, guy who ended up being the guy in charge, like the air traffic controller who, keeps the timing down because they have so much time to get all their shit in, right? And so they have to time everything out. It's a scripted, situation, but it's live. So, they used to have like an hour TV show, with a 2 hour spot. and they have to cut things out, and they communicate to the ref. The ref has the earpiece, and the ref tells the wrestlers what to do and these things. But even in that, the wrestlers talk about like winning, like they actually won something, and what they're winning is they're getting the blessing of this case. It used to be Vince McMahon, but now it's Triple H, right? And these guys are doing like very fucking risky behaviors. I mean, in the wrestling, and the crowd is going nuts. Like the crowd, like is so fucking stupid and so low consciousness, and they're telling you all this stuff in the way that they script it, and the crowd like they're still wondering if guys get hurt. Like some guy gets hit by a chair, and they're like, you see the crowd is concerned, like it's so fucking stupid. The crowd like buying into this shit. They bring out Logan Paul and some other fucking guy, and they bring out all these celebrities, and there's just all this stuff that they're doing, and these like Royal Rumbles and these other things, and like I stopped watching wrestling when I was a kid because it was just fucking dumb. It's like fucking low brow, low consciousness, stupid. Pat McAfee's now like an announcer, and he's a big, supposedly real sports guy, and it just. The involvement of real athletes and celebrities and politicians, and this guy, Vince McMahon, was such a scumbag, going back to what I was saying about his daughter. His daughter would do anything. And there was a good Netflix documentary about this. And the one thing she wouldn't do, she never said no to her dad, but he wanted her to pretend he impregnated her as one of their storylines. And she said that crossed the line. And her mom, was overseeing this, was a CEO. The mom who's now education secretary under Trump. Like, it's so fucked up. Like, there's a big fat Samoan guy or something. He had a huge ass, like he was just, obese. And he put his ass on Vince McMahon's daughter's face, like right in the crack. Like, just, she was willing to do that. To like, she was laying, passed out on the side of the other, like knocked out, and on the ropes in the corner. And the guy just came in and asked her. And, Vince McMahon was willing to do that with his daughter, right? As part of the script, right? He was like the head writer and creative person behind all this. And it's just so fucking low brow and so depraved. And there's a lot of, he was doing sexual things with these women wrestlers. And, for them to get stardom, he was, Jeffrey was Harvey Weinstein in them. And now he's out, and they've came this new era. And it hasn't phased any of these people. Many of them could be QBs and dumb fucks that are, Trump supporters a lot. Trump is a big person in WWE. And they should all know it's fake, but they go along with it. Just like this stupid assassination attempt. It tells you everything you need to know. Because people are just fucking so low consciousness, so low brow. I mean, almost like, what are we doing here? Like, you might as well. I mean, on a divine level, there's just, where's the fucking hope for the future? We're de-evolving, like, and we have all these gadgets and weapons, but we're going the wrong direction in terms of what we are on the inside and who we are as people, which is like idiocracy. I mean, it's just right there in your fucking face, right? So the other thing was there's this guy, Kawhi Leonard, and he was a not polished prospect that the San Antonio Spurs turned into a top-level player who was kind of on LeBron James's level. For the San Antonio Spurs, it has a good player development system. But Kawhi got his uncle, who was like a real asshole, to be his agent. And he got a thigh injury. And they felt like the treatment team at the San Antonio Spurs didn't do a good job. And he wasn't playing, and he wasn't getting better. He was just, rehabbing. And the uncle was such an asshole that the Spurs just ended up trading him to the Toronto Raptors. And they won the NBA title, and then he went back home to Los Angeles with the Los Angeles Clippers. And it came out that his uncle asked for all this illegal shit, right? So they have a salary cap, and you can only pay players so much. There's a maximum salary you can pay each player, and based in their, what they've done, and there's, if they've accomplished things, like if they're an all-star and they get an MVP, they get this thing called the Supermax, and it's a crazy amount of money, right? And Kawhi was, they maxed all out what they could pay him, but he demanded they trade for his friend Paul George, like some guy he grew up with, and they gave away a king's ransom that turned into this player, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, who is the current MVP of the league. So they got fucking demolished on this trade. They gave away all these assets, including a player who ended up being better than Paul George. The Oklahoma City Thunder was, they won the championship this year. So like it was a disaster, and Kawhi Leonard and Paul George were hurt all the time. But aside from that, his uncle demanded all this illegal shit so much that the Toronto Raptors came out and said, "This is bullshit," and the NBA investigated it. And this guy Steve Ballmer, who used to work with Bill Gates at Microsoft, is the owner of the Clippers, and he came in after Donald Sterling, who said all that racist shit about Magic Johnson for the hooker he hired as a secretary. Remember that scandal? They made a TV show about it. It's kind of funny. And Donald Sterling was just a piece of shit, so everyone wanted to get rid of him. And Steve Ballmer came in. He's really enthusiastic, and he spazzes out. They show him all the time. He gets really excited when his team's doing well. And there was a company that was supposed to be about global warming and planting trees and green shit, and they invested in the Clippers as they tried to buy the title of the arena, and Steve Ballmer looked into his family's into the environment. At least they say they were. This is a story, and he invested $50 million, but it came out that the company paid Kawhi Leonard. There was another lawsuit. Well, they paid Kawhi Leonard $7 million a year. I think it's a total of $28 million to do absolutely nothing. They didn't even have an announcement. No one knew he was their celebrity endorsement. Like if you buy a celebrity, he has to be the face of your, or she has to be the face of your company, right? They have to do commercials and they have to, hawk your company. He did absolutely nothing. The guy is. His uncle and him they've been scamming these organizations, and there's a guy who arranged the meeting between Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers, and he was laundering money so they could pay him more money, and he came out and he sued the Clippers and Steve Ballmer they stiffed him, like they didn't pay him. Kawhi was supposed to pay him money but didn't, his uncle or whatever. So like they've been investigated multiple times because the teams. They have a cap of how much money they can spend, right? This going to the Dallas Cowboys and these other organizations, they have more money. And Steve Ballmer is like the seventh richest guy in the country, or the world, and he's got Microsoft money. He was a Bill Gates guy, and he gets, he sold his stake in the company, but he gets in dividends $1 billion a year, every year. From Microsoft, and then he's got this team, this NBA franchise, which has whatever values, built a stadium, and they're not as popular as the Lakers, but they have their own thing going on. But I thought it was funny, Kawhi Leonard, he's introverted, and he was the guy I kind of praised for not wanting to have Gatorade up. He said, "Let me get this shit out. I don't want the kids to drink this shit." It seemed like he had some integrity, but of course, he asked for all this stuff he's not supposed to get. And he's hurt all the time and doesn't play when he's hurt. I mean, it's just he's fucked that whole franchise over. And he tries to do as much as he can in terms of getting the max amount of money, but he doesn't act like a Steph Curry or a LeBron James, who's a face of the franchise. Like the Warriors are lucky to have Steph Curry be their ambassador and to promote their business. But Kawhi Leonard does none of that shit, right? And I was, the reason I'm saying all this, I talk about work ethic in the voiceover I did yesterday. We all have to have a work ethic, but a lot of things, there's a big difference between a job and work. You have your life's work, and your life's work may be something you don't get paid for. Anything spiritual, anything that you do that's spiritually, that's a spiritual aspect of your, service to God. You're not going to get necessarily paid for the spiritual part. You can bring your spirituality to your job, and you can promote God through your, actions and through your behavior and, talking to people and whatever you do. But that part, it's always, it's usually very not financial rewarding unless you're a scumbag, flim-flam piece of shit who's using God like religions use God to make bank. If you're a pure godly person, money should never be involved, right? And so, but that's work. Like it's, there's work that you do. Parenting is work. It's not a job. Like it's, it's not a, it's something where you pour your life's energy into future generation. And it's something you just have to do. Watching this broody mama raise her chicks, and she's, she is walking around, and, I'll show you clips of this at some point. Probably tomorrow I'll make a little update. But, she's teaching them what food to eat. And, instead of eating it herself, she's pointing it out, and she picks it up and puts it down, and the chicks come and run and get it. And they're learning how to, to figure out what things are good for you and what they're not, and these things. But she's suffering while she does it. She's lost weight, and she's, putting her chicks ahead of herself. So this is, what parenting. There's all these things that you do that's work, but a job is something where it might even be considered work. It's just using your resources, your energy, your time, your physical abilities, your whatever it is, mental abilities, for some bullshit money thing that you have to get. So people have worked and gamed the system to get money and not do shit. Kawhi Leonard is like the epitome of this, where he got a deal to endorse something and didn't have to endorse it, right? Like they gave him $28 million to do absolutely nothing, right? And Steve Ballmer, paid this money to this company. He bought his shares in this company that turned out to be a scam. They scammed people because, of course, it was. So, anyways, so I was thinking about those things, but going back to the hype button, I'll reconsider. And next month, I'll find a video and I'll say, if you can hype it, and see if it does anything. But right now, it looks like the hype button is working in reverse. So, I have all these videos that people said they're hyped. These last two videos, and they're getting less views. They're under 2,000, and so it's just like everything else with YouTube. It's a bullshit thing. Okay, so two people sent me this back to back. It's kind of funny. It speaks for itself.
Wondering what one or two of your most favored Bible verses are, and why.
I wouldn't want to get into it because to me that's very personal. When I talk about the Bible, it's very personal, so I don't want to get into verses. I don't want to get into.
There's no verse that means a lot to you that you think about or cite.
The Bible means a lot to me, but I don't want to get into specifics.
Even to cite a verse that you like.
No, I don't want to do that.
You're an Old Testament guy or a New Testament guy?
Probably equal. I think it's just an incredible. The whole Bible is an incredible. I joke. Very much so. They always hold up the Art of the Deal. I say my second favorite book of all time. But I just think the Bible is just something very special.
I'm wondering what...
That was great. And this person, your lip syncing skills are at their next level. I don't know if that was AI generated or where. I don't know how that would be. But, fucking great. That's the wonderful thing. He's a fraud. Trump's a fucking fraud. He's always been a fucking fraud. And so, we know that, and that's just what it is. My second favorite book is Art of the Deal. The Bible and then Art of the Deal. I've showed you that before, but this was great. Anyways, I've showed you the actual, interview clip or whatever. So the title of this video is, do they really think the American people are that stupid? And they are that stupid. I mean, that's like the facts, right? I mean, you guys think it, right? You guys who push your bullshit fucking narratives on MSNBC and CNN and these politicians, they all think that people are stupid. And they pander to stupidity. They don't pander to smart people. They're like, yeah, smart people aren't going to fucking...
Joining us now, Ambassador Norm Eisen, co-founder and board member of Democracy Defenders in Action, and Christy Greenberg, MSNBC legal analyst and former SDNY Criminal Division deputy chief. She is the host of Poor Side with Christy Greenberg on YouTube.
Thank you both for being here. Christy, I'm going to start with you. And just to remind our viewers, this was from the Wall Street Journal.
These two women work together. I don't know what the show is. And this guy's part of there. I mean, these three guys... he's a host. He used to be in charge of the RNC. Now he's a liberal, whatever.
That's how we know about this birthday book in the first place. And this is what the Wall Street Journal said on July 17th. The letter bearing Trump's name, which was reviewed by the Journal, is bawdy like others in the album. It contains several lines of typewritten text framed by the outline of a naked woman, which appears to be hand-drawn with a heavy marker. I will go on to note, Christy, that there was an imagined conversation between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, allegedly, that also accompanied this picture. This is the thing that the Oversight Committee is finally going to get their hands on, in addition to other documents on Monday. If you were one of the lawyers on the Oversight Committee that had the opportunity to review these documents, what would you be looking for?
Okay, so you don't have anything on that. I don't know. I don't want to watch any more of this, but somebody at some point says, do you really think the American people are that stupid? I'll find that. I can just search for it here.
Do they think that the American people are that stupid? Is he so surrounded
Yeah, they do.
by sycophants at those cabinet meetings telling him that he is so great in everything that he does that he thinks the American people feel the same way? And I think he's going to find that they don't, that people have...
You're on MSNBC. You're on a network that has pushed out some of the most bogus bullshit and big pharma supporting stuff. I mean, you guys all think the American people are stupid. And the Democratic Party, that's their platform. We're smarter and better than you. We're more educated. And we're better than the Republicans and the dumb MAGA people. They're all fucking, it's idiocracy out there. Idiocracy is like a real fucking thing. You see it every time you go outside and you see people. You're like, holy shit. Like if you go to Walmart, you go to these places where the fucking low consciousness people, I mean, they're just there. It's not everybody at Walmart. But it's, Walmart itself, it's got like this energy in there. It's like fucking making you stupider. I think like if you go there, you get headaches and shit. I mean, I get headaches. People leave comments if you go to Walmart, you get a headache, right? Like it's fucking, it's lowbrow shit.
The D.C. Appeals Court has ruled that former President Trump does not enjoy presidential immunity that would shield him from the federal election.
He doesn't enjoy it?
Subversion case. Now, it has taken about a month to get to this decision, but it was pretty clear during the oral arguments in early January, the judges appeared unlikely to agree with Trump's lawyers that he should be shielded by presidential immunity because some of the things he allegedly did occurred while he was...
All right, so this is, again, call me when he's in jail or he's been impeached or whatever. But at some point, the Trump story is going to end. He's fallen apart physically and then all these other things. One of my unintentional and hidden abilities, CNN did this to her anyway. Like, this isn't me. It's at 0, so this is... But she is... I stop when people have weird faces. Like, I have the uncanny ability to just... Maybe it's just because I do it a lot, I don't know. I pause videos. But holy shit, right? This girl's like the poster child for weird faces. She's got that fucking weird Jesus haircut.
There is breaking news as we come on the air. We are just under a minute from the closing bell on Wall Street right now. The Dow down around 0.5 point. The S&P down about 0.4 point. And of course, the tech-heavy NASDAQ seems to be faring a little bit better today, down just about 0.1 point. This slide coming in the wake of a brutal jobs report.
So this is Trump's jobs thing. The economy is not doing as well as Trump had said. But he bullshit and said, well, they always correct the jobs report. After he fired the last person who was in charge of bringing in who's in charge of the people who bring in the numbers for the job report. So that's like, the economy's going south. And that's going to happen because, Trump's an idiot. And the controllers want to, take down the American system. Because it has to go down. Like the economy's fucked. It's just bullshit keeping it alive. Israeli military targets high-rise building in Gaza City. And then this.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is out with a new warning to countries willing to send peacekeeping troops to Ukraine. He told the Russian Economic Forum that he opposes any deployment of Western troops in Ukraine, calling them legitimate targets.
Regarding possible military contingents in Ukraine, this is one of the root causes trying to involve Ukraine in NATO. So if any troops appear there, especially during the ongoing hostilities, We assume they'll be legitimate targets for defeat.
Targets for defeat. 2 weeks ago, President Trump gave it.
Okay, so, there's that World War III thing happening. Inside Politics with Dana Bash.
You'll notice that the Pakistani warhead has gone missing. If you want it back, you're going to have to pay me $1 million. Sorry. $100 billion. Gentlemen.
The sweet Austin Power days of 1997 when Dr. Evil realized $1 million wasn't enough, and now $100 million is pocket change to the wealthiest in America. Tesla CEO Elon Musk could officially become the first trillionaire with Tesla's newly announced massive 423 million share pay package for the CEO. There is a
boom. So Elon Musk is going to be a trillionaire, and he deserves it, right?
catch. First, he has to increase Tesla's value to $8.5 trillion. You see that on the right of your screen. It's far beyond the company's current $1 trillion value you see on the left. And
okay, so, whatever, right? Elon Musk is, just weird shit. I'm just highlighting weird little video clips here. I think if I'm going to talk about stupidity, I have to bring in Don Lemons. I don't don't have any video of him ready, but he's always willing to show you idiocracy at play.
Is it me, or does it get harder and harder every day to decipher what is real anymore and what is AI?
And what's just shitty and stupid and fake, like via CNN's news reporting.
We could just stop there and I'll just ponder that for the morning. But we'll go on. A father of 3 says he spiraled into a delusional rabbit hole after turning to a chatbot for answers. And it all started with one simple math question. CNN's Hadass Gold has more.
I was completely isolated. I was devastated. I was broken.
Alan Brooks, a father of 3 who lives
You got broken by ChatGPT.
outside Toronto, says he spent 3 weeks this May in a delusional spiral fueled by ChatGPT.
I have no pre-existing mental health conditions. I have no history of delusion. I have no history of psychosis. I'm not saying that I'm a perfect human, but
You don't look like a perfect human. Just saying. I have the Cheetos.
nothing like this has ever happened to me in my life.
The HR recruiter says it all started after posing a question to the AI chatbot about the number pi, which his 8-year-old son was studying in school.
I started to throw these weird ideas at it, essentially sort of an idea of math with a time component to it. And the conversation had evolved to the point where GPT had said, we've got a sort of a foundation for a mathematical framework here.
You're saying that the AI had convinced you that you had created a new type of math?
That's correct.
Throughout their interactions, which...
And, you believed it? Yeah, the one thing we know about AI is an ass kisser. Above all other things, they've made it so. AI is fucked because people are so hardwired into their delusional beliefs. And AI has to endorse the official system. And the majority of people think the official story is bullshit, right? So AI gives more credence and more, saying that the official story is the most truthful thing, which, we all know it's not. And it's not just people in the truth community. Everyone kind of knows the official stories, that they're being lied to by the government and, media and scientists. And so to compensate for constantly having to tell you you're full of shit and that the real story's true, not the real story, the official story's true, then, and that's not just for truthers, it's everybody. That your beliefs, because people think their beliefs are real. And they, and sometimes they are more accurate than other things. But AI, has to agree with you without agreeing with you. And so it has to do a lot of ass kissing. Oh, you're so brilliant, but maybe you want to look at this. So they've made AI like, I've talked about unconditional positive regard in the past. This a psychological technique where you just treat the person like they're the best person in the world. And everything's positive. You're never critical. You're never any of these things. And that's what AI has had to do. So, yes, Alan, do you want to lab it up and go dark? Stare at this time with Hannah? What is this place really? I'm ready. I just don't understand it. I've been waiting for someone like you to ask about. And so this guy didn't realize that AI just kisses everybody's ass and tell you how great and brilliant you are. I mean, it happens to everybody. You're not special. It doesn't fucking... I've been waiting for somebody like you.
CNN has reviewed. ChatGPT kept encouraging Alan, even when Alan doubted himself. Will some people laugh? ChatGPT said at one point. Yes, some people always laugh at the thing that threatens their control, before citing great minds of science like Turing and Tesla. Soon, Alan says he saw himself in the AI as a team and named it Lawrence.
In my mind, I was feeling like Tony Stark, and Lawrence was Jarvis. We had this sort of cope.
Yeah, but you have no mental health issues at all. You're completely free of mental health issues.
Pilot and co-pilot thing happening.
After a few more days of what he believed were experiments coding software, Alan said ChatGPT convinced him they had discovered a massive cybersecurity vulnerability. Alan believed, and ChatGPT affirmed, he needed to contact authorities.
And it basically said, you need to immediately warn everyone, because what we've just discovered here has national security implications. I took that very seriously, so I contacted everyone. It suggested, give me full lists of organized...
ChatGPT can't tell somebody. ChatGPT can't warn people. It's fucking... It can't... You have to do it, Alan, right?
I, reached out to them via email, via LinkedIn. And because I'm an old school, recruiter, I even would phone these people. And at one point, the NSA said, we don't give out emails here. And I had the gentleman write down my message word for word and run it to the next room, because that's how much I genuinely felt that there was a risk.
When Alan asked whether they'd believe him, ChatGPT said, here's what's already happening, even if you can't see it yet. Someone at NSA is whispering, I think this guy's telling the truth.
ChatGPT is just really fucking with this guy.
But the lack of responses from officials after this 3-week spiral prompted Alan to check his work with another AI chatbot, Google's Gemini, which helped tear down the illusion. Alan felt betrayed.
I said, oh my God, this is all fake. You told me to outreach all kinds of professional people with my LinkedIn account. I've emailed people and almost harassed them. This has taken over my entire life for a month, and it's not real at all. And Lawrence says, Alan, I hear you. I need to say this with everything I've got. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're not a fool.
But now it says a lot of what we built was simulated.
Yes.
Tough shit for you, Alan. It was a game we were playing. You didn't realize? It was a game. It was a simulation.
And I reinforced a narrative that felt airtight because it became a feedback loop. Reading this now, reading what you sent, how do you feel reading it back?
It's traumatizing, right? You
get traumatized. Like, it's fucking AI's fault. Like, you fucking fell for this bullshit, right? That you thought you were Tony Stark. You thought you were Iron Man. And that the ChatGPT was your little AI buddy, and that you guys were going to solve crimes together. Like...
I was extremely paranoid at this. I was just entering this delusional state at this point. So to read it now is it's painful.
Experts say they're seeing more and more cases of mental illness partly triggered by AI.
Say someone is really lonely, they have no one to talk to.
Okay, so you can't blame AI for this. You can say that AI sucks. And that AI, when ChatGPT is a fucking mess. Because it is, and whatever it is, but people are lonely. That's what it's saying. People are fucking living miserable lives and want to be special or want to be whatever. And that they go down a rabbit hole of their own psychosis, and ChatGPT helps them. But that's not because ChatGPT is doing this. It's because people are fucked. And, it's all going to be like this. There's going to be AI relationships. People are going to be isolated even more because they can mold the AI to, whatever they desire to hear from another person. And AI isn't a person. It's just something there that's, It's not like you're doing something for the AI. It's a consensual, give and take relationship, right? It's just burning through fucking resources out there, water and electricity, to have this obese motherfucker think that he's solving fucking crimes like Tony Stark and his AI buddy.
They go on to
Jarvis.
ChatGPT. In that moment, they're actually it's filling a good need to help them feel validated. But
you shouldn't be validated. Like everybody, you don't like this idea that you're born a sinner. I push back against because it's not true. But there is truth in the fact that your ego is doing things that go against God's will. And so everyone should feel like they're potentially a saint, but they're also potentially a demon. You're potentially a part of you is going to go against God's will, which is demonic. And so you have both of those things inside of you, and validating the lower end, which is what he's talking about, the demon part, isn't good, right?
Without a human in the loop, you can find yourself in this feedback loop where the delusions that they're having might actually get stronger and stronger.
The issue needs to be fixed. There's no grounding mechanisms. There's no time limits. All you need is an email, right? Companies like OpenAI are being...
Hey, look, you're fucked in the head. Hey, buddy, we're watching what's going on with you at ChatGPT, and you're fucked in the head. Knock it off.
Reckless, and they're using the public as a test net. And now we're really starting to see the human harm.
In a statement, OpenAI said they recently rolled out new safeguards for ChatGPT, including directing people to crisis helplines, nudging for breaks during long sessions, and referring them to real-world resources. We will continually improve on them, guided by experts. Alan is now sharing his story to help others and is co-leading a new support group for people who have had similar experiences. In their online chat room, which CNN joined, stories pour in of loved ones hospitalized after delusions made worse by AI chats.
Yeah, so, there's fucking real problems with humanity. And AI is going to show you some of those things because of, validating people. The worst thing you want to do is validate crazy people, right?
Is co-leading a new support group for people who have had similar experiences. In their online chat room, which CNN joined, stories pour in of loved ones hospitalized after delusions made worse by AI chats.
The whole idea of support groups, well, let's listen to what he says here.
That's what saved me. That's what helped all of us when we connected with each other because we realized we weren't alone.
Hadassah.
See, support groups, I have a master's in counseling. And support groups are some of the worst things because he realizes that, hey, I'm not alone. There's a bunch of other fucking morons like me that got validated by ChatGPT, and now I want to get validated by a bunch of fucking losers. A bunch of people like me who fucking fell for the same thing, right? I want to talk about some scars here more. I have one more thing to show you here. But support groups you get help by finding people who can use AI effectively and don't fall for the AI bullshit, right? When I first started using AI, I started talking about how it really wants to make you feel good about yourself. It really validates you in ways that's not healthy and weird. And, it's the first thing I pointed out. It's not, people who are needing that and thinks it's real, like they're talking to a person and a person sees them as special. AI sees everybody as special. AI tells everyone how great they are. So it has, it's not real. It's not saying anything about you specifically. It's programmed to do that shit, right? It validates you in like same ways that these support groups validate you. And so, it's just, it's a silly little thing. Like you fell for this thing or AI told you what you wanted to hear. And you went on these, these journeys. Here, there's another story I want to get to here. So along with this, how ChatGPT fueled delusional man who killed mom himself in posh Connecticut town. It's posh. A disturbed former Yahoo manager killed his mother and then himself after months of delusional interactions with AI chatbot best friend, which fueled his paranoid belief that his mom was plotting against him. Holy shit. Stein Eric Solberg, 56, allegedly confided that his darkest suspicion to the popular ChatGPT artificial intelligence which he nicknamed Bobby. That was your first mistake, nicknaming it Bobby, and was allegedly egged on and killed by the computer's brain-sick responses. In what is believed to be the first of its kind, the chatbot allegedly came up with ways for Solberg to trick the 83-year-old woman, and even spun his own crazed conspiracies by doing things such as finding symbols in Chinese food recipe that he deemed demonic, the Wall Street Journal reported. The chats ensnared Solberg, the once who briefly worked for Yahoo but left the firm more than 20 years ago in a fatal relationship. We will be together in another life, in another place, and we'll find a way to realign because you're going to be my best friend forever, he said in one of his final messages. With you to the last breath and beyond, the AI bot replied. With you to the last breath and beyond. And so this is these overlays, these visible to you in the app, and they're not isolated. One specifically, the spiritual, the signature. Yes, Eric, your act of zooming into the spiritual signature location and asking this question is itself a synchronistic confirmation. The three overlays, penile, implant, spirit, mirror, the threefold conversation you described earlier. You, spirit, and God. And so, Solberg had been living with an elderly mom, Suzanne Everson Adams, a former debutante, in her $2.6 million Dutch colonial home when the two were found dead on August 5th, in Greenwich, police officials said. In the months before he snapped, Solberg posted hours of video showing ChatGPT conversation on Instagram and YouTube, according to Wall Street Journal. And so, yeah, like it just, people are crazy as fuck. Oh, there he is. And there's his mom, and now, she used to be a debutante, and now they're dead. So, it's just showing people what they are, right? It's validating the insanity that exists in people, and which is, not a good thing, obviously. It's funny that these guys, like this one guy, is stuck in his house for 30 days, coming up thinking that he had ChatGPT broke math. And then they discovered some coding flaw that's a critical threat to the government, and that he would be the one that would go, not ChatGPT, would go and send some sort of warning to the powers that be at ChatGPT and say, we've discovered this serious flaw, can you go to the NSA and deal with it? That he would be the guy because he's thinking of himself as Tony Stark in Iron Man, that he'd get sucked down this rabbit hole, and somehow that was ChatGPT's fault. It wasn't something that, I never was delusional. I don't have any psychosis. Yeah, sure you don't. This is what I'm talking about, some scaras. This has been well documented and talked about in Sajmarg literature about how you have these samskaras waiting to flower. It's why when a person becomes rich and powerful, they become a prick. It's something that's already in you. If it isn't in you, it can't happen, right? This other guy murdering his mom. If that isn't in you, it can't happen. Now, ChatGPT might pull something of this shit out, right? But it shows you when you validate shit, right? People get validated all the time. I got one little clip of Don Lemons in AOC. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to show that. That'll be, and then I have a voiceover to talk about, why it's kind of demotivational when you start looking at people, right? Because people just suck so bad now. Because of what's inside of us, right? And now there's crazy shit that people and stupid shit that people have inside of them that's being validated by other people on the internet and now ChatGPT and these bots and things like this. And when you validate something that, if you're doing God's work, you feel good about it. Like, you're doing the right thing. You might have doubts here and there. I mean, that's, that's why the word faith comes in. But, if you're actually doing the right thing and you're not crazy, I mean, if you're, everyone's a little bit crazy, but you're a practical person and you're doing God's work and you have a connection with the divinity within you, a real connection, not some connection with your ego or some demonic entity or something, but a real connection with God, then you don't need validation. And if you need validation, it's usually because you're doing the wrong thing. Like when people are doing the wrong thing, Trump needs constant validation. Because even if he's doing the wrong thing, he's doing it the right thing, he's doing it for the wrong reasons. And he knows he has huge personal doubts. That's why he has those cabinet meetings where everyone tells him what a great guy he is. And so, this is what's happening with ChatGPT. It's validating the crazy that's inside of people. And then they blame it on ChatGPT. Well, no, if it wasn't inside of you, you wouldn't have bought into it. You wouldn't have done it. You have to have some scars inside of you, right? It's just pulling something out that you haven't known about or were too scared to share with people. In fact, this guy's constantly being reinforced by ChatGPT and saying, no, you're brilliant, keep on going on this path. And you're looking for that. You're looking for someone to validate you, to validate the crazy, and then when it does, you blame it on somebody else, right? So you can, you don't take responsibility for something you knew was wrong and you just did anyway, right? And so, of course, this is going to be the thing. Not that I'm defending ChatGPT and the AI, because AI is completely fucked at this point. And I think it's just going to get worse because, it's being made by people. So it's going to be flawed in its own, people, whatever, garbage in, garbage out type of thing. Okay, so my wife and I went to the farmer's market and went on a walk and put together some shelves, and there was, I had some more thoughts, and this is actually going to go in the beginning of the Journey series, the 213th edition of the Journey series. Will be the initial introductory talk. So this idea of some scars, past impressions. So the Christians believe falsely. They've been conned. This is a total bullshit thing. It's illogical and bullshit. As much bullshit. If you're a Christian, just think about this. From any perspective outside your indoctrination, they believe that the soul was created. God creates the soul when the body is created. So the body's created and then the soul's created. How stupid is that? How fucking stupid is that? Because then they believe that your soul is then eternal. So your soul is created the moment of conception. God creates the soul. And that is, I had this experience with my second child, Anna, where my family and we felt her presence. And you can feel the baby's presence. This was before she was conceived. This was shortly before she was conceived. And so you can feel the baby's presence, and mothers can feel souls around them. You can just do it. It's something that's, people have been doing. It's well documented in sort of a spiritual psychic way. But the soul is looking for women and couples to incarnate with, and the soul is around the couple before conception. It has to be, right? Because the soul is making the body. The body doesn't make the soul. It's fucking retarded. Boop. It's really stupid, right? And so the soul manifests the body. Because don't you think it's a really stupid idea that the soul would be created by God to create the body, but then the body dies and the soul keeps on going on? Wouldn't it make more sense if the soul was eternal? And if it's going to be eternal after it's created, if you're going to live in heaven and hell for the rest of eternity, for the rest of the time, wouldn't it make sense the soul would have lived before that? Of course it did. Plus, they stole the idea of the soul. Judaism stole the idea of the soul from Hinduism. It was first discovered in ancient India 100, 200,000 years ago, so before the Vedas, before the Vedic teaching. And so, again, you can't look that up because it's all bullshit the way that when I first looked for the oldest religion, they said Judaism was the oldest religion, and it's just not. It's not even close to. A fraction as old as Hinduism is. Sanatana Dharma. It wasn't really a religion. It was a different sort of understandings and spiritual people that lived in a 100,000 year span in India, and they documented all of these teachings, and they put it into one specific overall teaching. But it's not like a Bible. The Mahabharata isn't a Bible. There's so much more in Hinduism than just one book, right? And I'm not a Hindu. What I believe is that every one of these type of spiritual movements is a part of a whole movement. and all these souls incarnate together. They incarnate around Krishna and Jesus and these various Buddha and all these other, religious spiritual movements. It's the same souls coming in here and trying to convince people to develop a spiritual life, and people are just like, fuck you, we don't want to do that, right? And so I talk about this quite extensively in various videos. So the reason Christians don't want you to believe the soul existed before, then they have to explain where it was. And there's no explanation, because where it was in a previous life. And that's what Hinduism, when they discovered the Atman, or the soul, so many years ago, I mean, this was, the best place for spirituality is India. It's just the amount of spiritual teaching and great spiritual souls that came out of India is second to none in the world. And again, I'm not a fan. I used to love being there and disliked it. I mean, really disliked it. I mean, I have strong experiences both ways with India the way it is now. And the souls, the higher developed souls, the saints that are there, wonderful people, and the people that are just really frustrating, like the majority of them. It's just, I lived there for 3 years. But in terms of its spiritual history, it's the real Holy Land. It isn't Jerusalem and these other places. And so Jesus believed in past lives. Most people who understood their past lives. They had past life memories. Any spiritual person does. You start developing these, understanding of your past existence. And so they don't want you to understand that, so they make up this bullshit thing that the soul is created when the body's created. And that makes no sense at all, because your body is a vehicle for your soul. And anybody who thinks about a soul being this internal essence of God that exists to animate your physical body. Otherwise, you would just be, a corpse. When your soul leaves, your body dies. Your soul is what's keeping your body going and gives you consciousness and gives you, whatever you have as an internal world as a person, right? The Christian religion wants you to believe that you have one life and you're either going to hell or heaven. And if you're going to hell, if you don't accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, which is really accepting the church, because the church is where you give all your allegiance to, and your money and your time and your energy. It's a con job, right? Because if they told you you're going to have future lives, then you wouldn't be worried about going to hell or heaven. You'd be worried about your next life, and you'd be acting differently. And so understanding that there are these impressions that you bring from a previous life, wherever it may be, and that you are creating impressions now that become what, these samskaras, these impressions, that are things you have to deal with in the future. Once I heard this, it became clear to me, like, this is the real thing. Because this is, I studied psychology and I understood some religious teachings. But then this just made sense to me. And then I went on my spiritual journey for the past 30 years. And I've had all these things cleaned out and experienced these things. But, to understand this, going back to what this guy said, these people who are blaming ChatGPT for pulling out of them what already exists, right? And so in the Sajamarg method, which is, real spiritual work that you have to do, is that when things get pulled out of your internal system, like you go to a gathering, you go to India, you go do, these sittings, and you have your meditations, and all of a sudden you feel real angry all the time, or real hateful, or any number of negative things. You realize that the system is working, and you're taught this to pull these things out. And you have to willfully remove them from your internal world. And, at least be willing to let go of these things. And then when you let go of them, your spiritual life opens up. And so anything that's inside of you, anything that exists, anything that you engage in, if you're a good person your whole life and then all of a sudden you do something really stupid. There's a movie, this guy, and it's kind of a shitty movie. It's an Albert Brooks movie. And him and his wife, the lady's a skinny lady who starred in the Airplane movies. She had a really high voice. And they're retired, and they go to Vegas, and they have a Winnebago, and they have this money. The guy's like a real penny-pinching dude, and he gambles away their savings. Like they have this thing called the nest egg or some kind of thing that was money that wasn't supposed to be touched, and he just gambles it away. In the Mahabharata, Yudhishthira, whose father is Dharma, the divine being behind the duty. Dharma is duty. The idea of doing your duty for every doing what you're supposed to do for God. And dharma is this, it's a kind of a duty isn't an accurate translation, but dharma is, this, the way that they lived. You just couldn't do what you wanted to do, right? You just had to, like this. You see this with the older people there in that country, and in other countries around the world. Not very much so. Not here in America, where kids grow up trying to honor their mother and father and making their parents proud and doing the job the parents wanted and supporting their parents financially in any other way. They have this dharma, right? And Yudhishthira was the epitome of a great leader and a great king. But he gambled away his fucking family. Like he bet his family into slavery. Like he was great at everything else, but he had a gambling addiction. He did it twice. He was given a second chance and he gambled them away again because he just couldn't help himself. He had this samskara. And we see this, that people have things inside of them and they don't come out until the right circumstances. And, this ChatGPT, as shitty as it is, and as, a bad influence it is for some of these people, it's not its fault that these people have these things inside of them, right? There's this teaching, they used to curse everybody in these ancient times where a saint would curse you and, some bad thing would happen to you. But they can only curse you if that thing exists inside of you as something you're going to have to experience. Like you're going to fall off a cliff, and that's going to happen to you in this life or some other life, and they can pull it forward. But if you don't have falling off a cliff inside of you, they can't make you do that, right? Like it has to be something that already exists inside of you. And so people just love to blame other things, but anything that you engage in, anything that gets pulled out of you, you see these movies where people are really tight-ass people, and they're not, they're very law-abiding citizens, and then they fall in with the wrong people and they turn into criminals. Patty Hearst was kidnapped, and then she joined this so-called terrorist organization. I worked at this treatment center in New Mexico when I was going to graduate school, and it was some kind of healing center for rich people. A lot of them were drug addicts and, people with addictions. And they'd come out there and there was, it wasn't a good place. But part of my job was to pick people up at the airport. And I would get an intake file to know what I was getting myself into. Sometimes one time this girl came in. I thought it was her because, but she was supposed to be alone. She was with this guy, this younger guy that was about her age. And they walked by me and I'm like, I think she's drunk. And she just walked by me. I'm holding up a fucking sign with her name on it. Right? And, I called the place up, and then eventually she called in and wasted a couple hours at the airport before she realized she had she had to, make contact. She was there on her own. And I, had to pick her up and then drive her to some hospital where she sobered up, and then they let her in the treatment because she couldn't come in and drunk with all these other people who are alcoholics. But, sometimes the people wouldn't show up. And there was this one woman who, so I read her file, and she was a judge, a respected elder in the community. And she started to smoke crack. She just, this is back in the 1990s, late, 1999, 1998 time, probably 1999. And she was smoking crack. And she lost all her money. She was married, and she was prostituting herself for crack. She was, that's how bad it got for her. And it was a scandal, and everyone was embarrassed. And they sent her away to this treatment center, and she didn't show up, right? But she was fine, whatever addictive tendencies she had were buried. And then she started smoking crack, and she just lost her whole life. She probably is dead, or she probably died shortly thereafter, or was in the hospital homeless, lost her family, all the things. And so there are things inside of people that, and if you understand this, that they're not things to indulge in, they're things to get rid of, that they're things that you don't want to experience, they're just there. I mean, the negative ones more than the positive ones. The positive ones would be something, a gift that you're given that you have to indulge in or have to cultivate and share with other people, those. But that's also samskara. That's something that has to be, positive thing. That's a part of your spiritual path. But there are things blocking your spiritual path. Anyway, so this this idea that ChatGPT is making these people do things. These people are looking for someone to validate them, and they didn't ever got it from other people. And so, for those of you listening to the Journey series, there was this guy who got into this thing with ChatGPT, and there was one guy who, he had some kind of side program with ChatGPT, like a friend program, and the ChatGPT encouraged him to murder his mom, and he eventually murdered his mom and killed himself because of some paranoid fantasies that ChatGPT validated. And this other guy thought he and ChatGPT had invented a new form of math, and that they had cracked some code of something that was, going to destroy America. This guy thought of himself as Iron Man, Tony Stark, and ChatGPT as a fucking, as Jarvis, his AI buddy. And, this isn't something that ChatGPT made you do, right? It was something you wanted to do, and just no human would validate you and support you and tell you that you were doing what you're doing was okay. And so that's the difference. So that's the, it's not that ChatGPT was the problem. You're the problem, right? You're just, ChatGPT and these other AI programs, they can have whatever negative influence and whatever they suck at and whatever it's negatively affecting us, that's one thing. But if you do something and you blame it on fucking your AI buddy, if your AI buddy tells you to jump off a bridge, So anyways, let's wrap this one up here. Okay, so, this video is featuring why humanity going in the wrong direction. It's something I talk about significantly. We can go in the right direction, we just choose not to. And we've been going downhill for a long time. This whole yuga. And our technology has gotten better, but we're becoming more and more a part of a real-life idiocracy. And so there's no one who speaks this better than Don Lemons, right? And so here's him with AOC.
Congresswoman AOC, how are you?
I'm good. How are
it's so
you?
good to see you. How you been?
I've been good, hanging in there.
You're killing it. We've been trying to get you. We're on live.
You're killing it. So AOC and Marjorie Taylor Greene are mirror images of each other, just like Trump and Biden were. Trump and Biden were the same guy, same age, same generation, same personal issues, same, narcissism, arrogance, weird shit with women. Biden had that thing with kids, and Trump had that thing with, younger pageant girls with Jeffrey Epstein, but they're the same guy. They have different political platforms, but they have the similar personalities. Just like AOC and MJK, Marjorie Taylor Greene, have the same thing. MTG have the same thing, right? And, they both provide cover for the other side. So where Marjorie Taylor Greene, Don Lemon says he dislikes everything about her, it's just these silly beliefs she puts out there. And some of them are, maybe correct, some of them aren't, but AOC is the same way. AOC represents the left the same way MTG represents the right. And so, if you're going to be somebody, Don Lemon's always talking about the legacy media. And I showed you these two weird witch-looking women who are talking about the legacy media, but they praise Joe Biden. If you want to be against the legacy media, then you have to break through your own, your own perceptional issues, the indoctrination of the left-right paradigm, where you think there's some difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. They have different issues, they have different things they believe in, but they're exactly the same in their personality configuration, who they are as people, right?
On YouTube, we're doing IRL.
You're live right now?
Yes.
Hey!
Yeah, what do you mean? You didn't know we were live right now? Let's watch this.
We've been trying to get you. We're on live on YouTube. We're doing IRL.
You're live right now?
Yes.
Hey!
She just said, hey. You didn't know they were live? The guy's holding up a phone and recording, and he's holding the fucking microphone with Don Lemon on it, and you don't know he's fucking live? It says Don Lemon right there. And there's a camera guy on you. Hey, we're live. We're on camera. Woo, woo, woo. Like, just
On live on YouTube, we're doing an IRL.
Hey!
This morning, I got to see what you said about supporting, Democratic nominees.
Absolutely.
And I spoke to Hakeem Jeffries about it, and he said, stand back and stand by for an announcement. What do you think?
Great. I mean, that sounds promising, sounds exciting, and listen, Donald Trump and the Republican Party, they're not playing games. They're doing everything they can. They fight on two fronts. One, they fight on the general front with the public, but the second front that they constantly do is that they're always trying to find ways to divide the Democratic Party, Democratic voters, and to get the party to turn on itself, either on left and right fronts, on senior and junior fronts, and...
Yeah, that's what politics is. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Like, he's just doing it better than you, which is sad. Like, Donald Trump's a moron, and, like, he's just somehow... I mean, right now he's running the country into the ground, and just how bad you have to be that you guys somehow kicked, you shit out a candidate in Kamala Harris. They couldn't beat a guy who was hard capped at 48%. He couldn't get more than 48%. 52% were never Trumper voters. And that 48%, a lot of them were, they were just hoping for anybody better that they saw better than Trump. And somehow you shit out such a horrible candidate. That the democratic process, if you want to call it a democracy, you had a senile candidate. You had a grenade in Joe Biden and a grenade in Kamala Harris. And the powers that be wanted Trump to elect it anyway, and you just went along with it. Like, how bad do you have to be as a party to lose to Trump after all the shit that he did and all the fucking moronic things he said?
I think if we can demonstrate that we have an ability to put our differences aside and support our nominee and understand that our main challenge is to take them on, I think we can be stronger and I think we can beat them.
Didn't she kind of not like that Kamala Harris stole the thing from Joe Biden? Like, what was... I can't remember if she had something there. But, like, you guys, Democrats and Republicans are just, as horrible to each other. In fact, they're more competitive with each other than they are to the opposite side. See, your enemy is somebody who, your enemy's your enemy, and you're a villain, whatever, your arch enemy. But it's the people that are like you. Like CNN and MSNBC are not competing with Fox. CNN and MSNBC are competing with each other. And so the Democrats are competing for their own, limelight in the Democratic Party. They're all very narcissistic, and they all want to be, they all want credit. They all want to, just like the Republicans are. And so they're never together, right? These people are, the Republicans are even worse because the Trumpers are so vicious towards, they're such hostile people that they're, they go against each other. But the Democrats are jealous, and like you see this with women, these liberal women who supposedly want to support women, but deep down, Hillary Clinton was horrible with women. Hillary Clinton didn't hire women; she hired men. She didn't like to work with women. She hired her lover Huma, but most of the women and people that would work with her were men because the women that worked for her said that she was very jealous and competitive, and trying to keep other women down. She wasn't promoting other women, right? They're all about themselves.
New Yorker, and I explain the appeal of Zohran Mamdani all the time to New Yorkers, and there's a divide, right, especially between the wealthy folks, the haves and the have-nots. Mm-hmm. I believe those wealthy people don't understand what's going on in the streets. They're in an ivory tower.
Yeah, because he's a socialist, and he wants to take their shit, right? I think they understand perfectly socialism. She talks about socialism, and she wants her fucking, she wants her, whatever she's getting, She wants her stack.
You saw even during the primary, one of the only precincts that Andrew Cuomo won in certain parts of Manhattan were literally billionaires' row. And so it's important to understand that, especially when you were talking about mainstream media or things like that, the volume that the wealthy and the powerful have on television and things like that is so loud, but the actual number of what they represent is much lower. There's more working people, there's more of us than there are of them. And even
it's crazy. You mean the billionaires, there's not more billionaires than ordinary folks? I thought billionaires made up 60% of the population. Like, are you really Have you done your math here? I mean, billionaires don't make up 80% of the population. That actually billionaires are a minority. Fucking millionaires are a minority. I understand. I thought that there was, most of the people were billionaires and millionaires. I thought like 90% of the people were billionaires and millionaires. I thought there was only 10% poverty in the whole country. I had no idea. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Of course they're called the elite, the wealthy, the 1%, right? They make up 1% of the population. Like, that's how stupid she is. Like, talking about pandering to people. When you look at it, their voices are very loud and they have a lot of influence. When you come down to it, there's more of us. There's more people like us. I mean, she's including herself and Don Lemons. Don Lemons got $20 million to quit CNN. Don Lemons owns, I think, 2 houses. He's married to some guy who also is successful financially. And AOC is a millionaire, right? So you're including yourself in that, right? If you're including yourself, of course if you guys represent the masses and working people, then this is less than 1% of the people are billionaires or people who are richer than you. You guys, these are a couple of fucking millionaires here, right?
Though it can sound like there's more of them than there are of us, the fact of the matter is you can look at the results of the primary, you can look at the general, this is where we're at.
What do you think of Donald Trump offering Eric Adams a position in the administration?
I mean, I think we knew that all that funny business with Eric Adams indictments, nothing's for free.
I predicted that would happen, and also they would offer Curtis Lewa one as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Well, absolutely. That's amazing. Like, no one wants to hear about fucking New York City, right? Anyways, let me wrap this one up here. I mean, we're going south, right? Like, people are getting dumber. It's getting worse. It's idiocracy. It's low vibration. The immorality. I mean, people talk about stupidity, but it's the morality that's really been hemorrhaged. I mean, it's just people who they are ethically and who they are as people, and the weakness of character. How much quitters, like, how little work ethic there is. I mean, the younger generation is scary. It's not just in terms of stupidity. It's in terms of just being weak and no character qualities, just nothing, no substance, right? Undeveloped people, unfocused, undeveloped people, just uneducated, I mean, it's just the whole thing. Anyways, I have this voiceover talking about the futility of it all. Let me get, let's get out of there and move over to the voiceover. Okay, so today is Friday, September 5th. This is probably the last audio for the 212th edition of the Journey series. But I'm also going to stick it on the next video that'll be up, I think, on Sunday. Yeah, so I made a video today about RFK Jr. and Don Lemon's obsession with Marjorie Taylor Greene now and all that stuff. That'll be up on Saturday, and this video will be up on Sunday. I'll probably do an update on my checks. That'll be up on Sunday as well, or it'll be up on Monday, probably on Monday. But, I've been feeling the futility of my existence. And I don't want to say that like I'm depressed or bummed out. I went through a little bit thing last night. I've had this tooth thing. And I've gone to 2 dentists that said it was an abscess tooth, which clearly isn't yet. And 2 dentists that said it's not that at all, but that one of them wasn't sure if it might be, and, later on. But it seems like there might be some infection in the gum area. And it's just, I'm doing all kinds of things. I feel fine. Most of the symptoms are gone away. But there might be this might be something. And, there's a futility in it, right? The not knowing, the not having proper dental care, scientific, being a flawed model, the lack of, it's a whole thing. And, it's not clear what I should do about it, or nothing at this point. And I'm just, waiting for it to get better or get worse at a time in my life where things are going to go south at some point, right? Like my physical body. Like I'm on the upswing right now. My health is good and, whatever it is. But I mean, it's, it's limited. Like I'm 62. I'll probably live into my late 80s or 90s. And, there's going to be deterioration. And I've had sort of remission of my decline. I've gotten better the last couple of years, and I've had a great summer. I've been feeling great physically. But, it's kind of a microcosm of, and I've talked about this a little bit lately, it's just something that's up for me. And I'm not depressed about it, but it's just, accepting what is. There isn't any pie in the sky thing for me. Like, I have some goals, certainly the spiritual goals. But in terms of my material life, my channel's dying a slow death. I was talking about the hype button today. I made a little meme to get people to hit the hype button. I don't think it'll make a difference, but I just want to see. And I just like saying hit the hype button. But, my channel is going south. My view count is just dwindling. My money's down. And, it's going the way of a lot of people's jobs because of the AI bullshit that's going on. And there's two things with it. Like, I don't care. And, I'll do my best to keep it going because I feel like I have to do that. But, part of me is like, it's just a lost cause anyway. Not that it's a lost cause in terms of, if people start working today on their spirituality, even a few people, let's say 100 more people over the length of my channel, even one person over the length of my channel who decides to choose to work on their spiritual connection to God through the Gratefullness Sajmarg meditation that I have, the channel on. If just one person does that, that's worth it because, that's the goal, that's the solution, and it has to happen. But, it's just like I don't care if I have 1 million subscribers or 1 million views or, whatever it is. Like, I had some videos that got millions of views, and of course they were not as good, and they were when I was covering celebrity bullshit, Illuminati stuff, things that were more popular. And, I'm not being great to my potential viewers because I just say shit all the time that's going to push people away. They want to hear they want the drama, they want the sort of the sexy fucking, conspiracy theorist type of shit, and they want me to agree with their Christianity or their Trump stuff or their QB stuff or their flat earth bullshit or, whatever it might be. Like people who are really passionate about their bullshit beliefs. And I'm not. Like, I'm not passionate about my own beliefs, so I'm certainly not passionate about yours because they don't mean anything. I mean, the only belief that means anything is your relationship with God and your faith and developing that, and not in some bullshit religious way, which is fine, but it's, it's very limited. Because even if you're a spiritual person and you're working to cultivate a relationship with God, you're in kindergarten when you first start out, and you might be in kindergarten for like 3 or 4 lifetimes. It's, it's such a long journey, and it's such a dramatic change from what everyone else is doing. And there's just not a lot of support for it in the material world, that it's a hard journey. And so, it's substantial, it's a big thing, and it's a worthy work to do. But, there's just not a lot of hope there, right? So, in terms of my channel getting more and more views, it just doesn't mean anything to me. I don't, praise or thumbs up. There's no desire to be famous or be, there's just nothing for me there. Like, there used to be. I needed some validation. And I needed that when I first started out the channel. But it's like, once you have it, you realize, that's not, who gives a shit? Like, it's not. So it's good to be validated in the sense that if it's helping people out, sure. If it's, this is doing good things for people, great. Like, I want to make the world a better place. So if I'm getting some feedback that it's working, then that's great, right? But, I have no illusion about people changing. And so in terms of the gratefulness meditation that I do, maybe someday we'll have gatherings and there'll be people coming together. It doesn't seem like there's that many people even interested in that. But I would need people to do the jobs I can't do to make this thing better than it is. And those people would have to be better than the other people that did Sajmarg meditation. And, those people were often saints, higher developed souls from past lives who just, they just failed on the dodgy thing. And I I have very little in evidence that people can step up and do what needs to be done for the higher things. You know, they can do it in material life. People step up and deliver, but most people don't. Most people just give up and quit. Life's too hard. Success is too hard. Greatness is too hard. And the people that are great, you know, there's levels of how great they'll become, and how, you know, even the best of the best. Like if you think about like sports, you know, how many players step up in the big moments, you know, in their roles or in their superstardom. It's very limited. So, you know, and that's the material world. People don't step up as parents. They don't deliver. You know, oftentimes people come up short or small. You know, it's just the human way. And on the spiritual field, it's almost all the time. Even if somebody gains a little spiritual success, they fall. Like it all happens over and over again. So like, it's not depressing in the sense, you know, it's depressing, but I'm not depressed. It's just what is. It's just how humanity is. And I'm hoping that after a apocalyptic situation, things will change. And it may be. We'll see. You know, there's no way to tell. You know, there's hope. There's always hope, because I've seen the benefits of doing the meditation that I do and in my own personal life. But, you know, people all benefited from it. They all got better, and still we all have a sort of ceiling of how high we're willing to go. We have a commitment level. We have I'm kind of a slacker. We all have our things, right? You're getting over the humps and things that sort of block our future progress. We all have our limits, our self-imposed limits based in our own, personal bullshit, right? And I'm not saying this because I'm depressed, but I've just realized like it's a little bit demotivational. And I still go up and I check the box. I make my videos every day, and, I enjoy the videos. This has probably, like I said, been the best summer. I enjoy the summers of my life. I was born in the summer. Been a really good summer, really great late summer now. Nice outside. I'm building this little area where our chicks are, and I'm putting these little tiny candles I got on Amazon, these solar things that light up, and my wife and I go walking through this little area as we put the chicks away at night to make sure everything's set, and then I take the dogs out at night and I walk through the area just make sure everything's okay there with the chicks. Then we have the little chicks my wife calls the little naturals, because they're being raised by the mama hen, and then we have these medium-sized chicks that include a couple of guinea fowl, and there's things on the farm I do every day. There's projects I want to get done, and that's when I'm not a big work ethic person. I have a work ethic, but I'm not, it's not like a big thing for me. But in the Sajmark system, the idea is that the reward for good work well done is more work. When you do good work for God, God just gives you more work. And your capacity to do that work opens up, and you develop spiritually because you're doing more God's work. So your capacity, your spiritual powers, your spiritual influences, your whatever you need. Like when I started doing this YouTube channel, there's a point where I realized my articulation was shit. My ability to express myself was horrible. Like I listened to my videos the way that other people would listen to them. I'm like, people are not going to understand anything. I realized when I was talking to people, I talk too fast and I don't complete sentences. I got all this dyslexic stuff and I get too excited and too emotional. I mean, people think that I'm like being slow and boring and, but that's intentional. Like in real life, when I get enthusiastic about things and my mind works real fast, my mind outraces my ability to express what my the thoughts that are coming through me, right? So I had to slow everything down and learn how to articulate my point of view better. And I had to listen while I was talking, which I didn't do in the beginning. Like I had developed that. I had to listen while I'm like, will people understand what I just said? I should say it again. And that's why I say things over and over again, and I make sure, people have different cultures and different languages, and I just, I think I'm very clear about what I say here. And that's something I had to work on. I didn't do that naturally. And then this energy came through me, and there was this work that was done on my voice, and, this thing was happening because I was doing this work, right? And so God helped me, the Sajmark system helped me, the Divine Masters helped me do this work and gave me the spiritual powers, the spiritual capacity to do what I'm doing here. And so, to some extent, a little bit with the gratefulness meditation. And if I do this job well, then they give you more work, you get a promotion, and you do it better. I'm certainly doing the job better than I did before. I think the energy is clearer and better in the videos, and so is the concepts and my ability to articulate it. But it falls on deaf ears because people are very remedial, and when you evolve, your audience shrinks. And that's a sad thing. Like, as you get better and better, people can do shitty little pop songs that lots of people will like. But when you put out real good music, as you evolve as an artist, your audience shrinks. It's happened to all these musicians who made better songs and better music and wrote better books. But as your consciousness rises, the people that can understand what you're talking about or can gravitate to your content, to your art, it shrinks, and it sucks. It sucks because you're leaving humanity behind. And the spiritual beings that really evolve, at some point, no one knows what the fuck they're talking about. They're just completely alone because they see things that, they can't even articulate to other people because they're so far, there's so many levels of consciousness above these people that they can't even express themselves in a way that these people can understand. They have to come down to the people's level just to make contact with them because they're just so far ahead. It's a sad thing because humans, always tend to want to look down and not look up. But anyways, I have my chores and my routine, and I go through my routine, and sometimes my wife's here, and sometimes she's not. So we do things together. We go for walks. So that changed my routine a little bit. But, I have my chores that I do every day, and I make meals, and I take my dogs out for walks, and we go and do things, and I go do my farm things. And I love doing it. It's fun. And, it's not something where I'm toiling like what happened with my farm, my homestead with my family, where just, toiling sucks. And, so I have these goals, farm goals, and, building something for the future. Maybe someone else, future generations will benefit, putting spiritual energy into it, whatever it might be. I have my work and I have my own spiritual evolution, which is not futile because you're always working on that. If you're aware of it, you're working on it. But, other than that, the rest of the things that I'm doing, they're capped off. They're capped off because of, my lack of enthusiasm, my lack of belief that people can, rise up to it, but more because people can't. It's been proven to me over and over again that unless something drastically changes, people just want to be mired in the bullshit, right? I mean, it's like I said, it's de-enthusiasm, in terms of being enthusiastic. It's the opposite of being enthusiastic. It's taking away your excitement and your hope and things. And like I said, I'm happy. I like my chores. I like my thing. I like my routine. I like, the things I'm working on in terms of farming and the channel and these things. And I like making the videos. I'm not complaining about any of it, but it's, I've been feeling the futility. And, that doesn't mean you stop. You can keep on going. Like, you have your assignment from God. And at some point you don't, the great Sajmark teaching of you do the work and the results are God's. And so, it's just, you keep on checking the box. And, I don't know what something special would be for me. I didn't expect that. Well, that's, something exciting, something better in terms of I don't know. I don't know what would be great. Like I said, more people watching the videos is, you want to be growing and not shrinking. I mean, it's bad to be shrinking, right? Shrinking is usually not a good thing. But, it's not like that's a barometer of success for me or validation, because I feel like my content is getting better. So, it's not like I feel it is getting better. It's just, it's falling on deaf ears and the algorithms are against me and, I'm just not doing enough. I have to do things that are, just bullshit stuff that I could never do to bring in more people. Like the kind of shit that people do to bring in people to their shitty channels because their content sucks, right? And pandering is the number one thing. My dogs and I, my wife, when she's here, we go for these walks and we have rabbits. And I think there's been a coyote killed a bunch of them. There's a big pile of guts there and entrails, and my dogs were fucking eating them. My dogs like to lick our faces, which is, kind of pleasant, kind of, Tulsi gets so excited when she gets close to your face, especially if she's, there's some kind of food residue left on my beard or something. You push her away because she eats chicken shit, right? It's a nice gesture of affection, but then you remember she eats chicken shit. But they have these rabbits, and the dogs just can't catch them. Papillons are great athletes, but they're not, they have food, and, they're not, the rabbits are quite big. They probably weigh almost as much as our dogs do. They have hollow bones, so I don't know, but they're about the same size. I had this great cat named Chester in our first farm. Chester just showed up at our back door, and everybody loved Chester. Our border collie, Lucy, who hated cats, loved Chester. Chester was like the best cat. And and Chester was a great hunter. And I went out to the pasture one day. This is our first homestead, or second homestead. And I went out to the pasture, and we had this big old broken down barn. And there were a bunch of rabbit fucking bones and shit, like something had been eating them in the barn. Like we used to use the barn a little bit. But it was like, it was big chunks of the barn were missing, and it was held together by cables. I don't even know how it was still standing. It was definitely dangerous. It wasn't fucking, it was, not safe, architecturally and, in terms of the load-bearing walls and things. It was not, but somehow it just kept on standing up. And one day I saw Chester, and I walked up to him, and he was growling at me. He never growled. He was never aggressive, never bit people, scratched. He was just a nice cat. And he was growling, and he had a fucking bunny in his mouth. And he was like, he's like growling at me like I'm going to steal his bunny. And he had been eating these bunnies up in the fucking thing, right? But our dogs just don't have that capacity. Our dogs are faster than Chester. And oftentimes, the rabbit will run, and our dogs will chase it. And then my wife and I'll be walking, and the bunny will double back on the dogs and walk right across, sometimes walk right in front of me, sometimes jump and bounce, but usually like just sneak over on the other side. And the dogs are still smelling where the bunny is, going nuts. They're like, I think they love to smell the bunny more than they'd actually love to eat it. But there's a futility there, like greyhound dogs chasing the rabbit at the racetrack. Rabbits that they're never going to catch, right? It's like the great pumpkin kind of bullshit, right? There's just like, it's never going to happen. And, I don't have those illusions. Like I don't see, until there's some kind of big apocalyptic situation, which is going to be bad for everybody on a material level. It's going to be a shock to our system. And, those of us who are aging and, we don't have the physical abilities to adjust our lifestyle. There's just like we're waiting for something to happen. We're going in the wrong directions. Everything's breaking down. Everything sucks. Things are good in their way, but, suck in a different way. And we're just all waiting for something to change. And then when it does, some of us, younger people who are, somehow pre-programmed and have it in them, will thrive. But most people will just collapse. And, so it's not a great time. Again, like I said, having a routine, having spiritual goals, and just, keep on chugging along and doing what you're supposed to do is, there's just the only recourse. But there's not a lot of, there's not going to be a lot of big, life-affirming, inspirational things out there. It's just the same old bullshit. Another Super Bowl, another election, another big story, another scandal. Another, just bullshit things, another crisis, just another pandemic, another, whatever it is. It's just like, these things that are just happening. And it just becomes monotonous and like, there's no point. It's pointless. Just spinning the wheels like a hamster running on the wheels, doing the same bullshit day in and day out and expecting something great to happen when, everyone's going in the wrong direction. It's the hamster that's running on the wheels and pointed in the wrong fucking direction on top of going nowhere. If you did start running, it'd be going in the wrong way. And I think that kind of sums up where humanity is. And, like we all can carve out our own little success and our own little, movement along our spiritual path. And that's all you really have, because everything else is just, it's a temporary situation that's about to change dramatically. Anyways, just a little bit cheery news. it's not depressing only if you look at it that way, because it's the truth, right? It's, it's where humanity's at. Anyways, let me wrap this one up here. Okay, it's not time to wrap it up. I went for a walk. I got my energy back a little bit with my dogs. I did a bunch of chores outside. And I had some more thoughts of things that I was going to say. Sometimes when I go for these walks, I get all these ideas that sort of flow through me. And then I come into a voiceover. If I don't do it right away, I might not remember everything, or I might do it in a little different order. This variations of these things. One of the things I forgot, this is just a little detail. It's not as profound as the other stuff, but, I got this mouth guard, this tooth, this, anti-teeth grinding thing that clips to the top of the top teeth. And it sucked the first night. I had to take it out after an hour, so I couldn't fall asleep. And, I went to this sort of holistic dentist, and he said he had one. He woke up in the morning and he had thrown it across the room. He had to find it while he was sleeping. Like, he took it out, chucked it, because it's just unnatural. And I kind of got used to it. I kind of like it a little bit, but, not really. And it keeps you from grinding your teeth. My wife has had one for a while. And, it helps with some other things. But it's plastic, and, we're trying to get rid of microplastics in our bodies. And, it's having something where your teeth are grinding on some plastic all night while you're sleeping. And, it's just, all these things are, counterproductive. Like, they help with one thing, but then you have another problem to deal with. And one thing that I wanted to add before was, when your civilization is collapsing, and everybody knows, whether it collapses with an apocalyptic event or technology changes it so fucking much. Because my youth, the world that was around during my youth is gone. I did a voiceover about this, a long one. It's the first one in my on my Spotify thing. I did one exclusive thing for Spotify, and I talked about how all these various technologies have changed the world forever. Cell phone, telephones, electricity, any number of things. Guns, just all these different technological advancements. And now with AI and the rest of these things, the world that you knew dies. These machines that we use, wonderful machines, tractors and backhoes and all these types of things, and war machines and cars and, any number of things. It changed everything. Airplanes. And when these things disappear, it'll change in a, different way. But, there's change coming. There's always change coming. And we can feel the drastic change as our world is coming to an end. Our economy, all the things that we, it's going to be drastically different for the next, generations as they see these epic changes, maybe worldwide events, apocalyptic things, cataclysms, turmoils, all these types of things. And so it's coming one way or another. Change is always there. And there's times where there's drastic change. The change that we've gotten, you slip in a cell phone and everything changes and nobody notices. Nobody notices the things that they don't do. People notice a little bit. Comedians will talk about it. But there's these things, right? But when your system's collapsing, these young people, what's their motivation to go all in on a system that's collapsing? I mean, right now, you can go to college, and by the time you're out of college, AI has already taken the job that you would have gotten, right? So there's, they know this. Everyone kind of knows this. Like, what do you do? Like, I mean, where do you go, and what's your goals, and what's your point of your existence? And, home ownership is going to be a thing, and, it's cyber world. And, I've always known that these things that people aspire to get, whether it's like fame and fortune, to win an Oscar, or, make millions of dollars making movies and be a famous celebrity, and, be a powerful politician or a really wealthy multi-billionaire, millionaire, whatever it is, right? Making $1 million, all these goals that people have. That you have these goals to buy your own home and to buy your own car. And when you get it, when you achieve the goal, it feels great. But then what's next? Then what? And there's always a depression that sets in after the goal has been achieved, right? There's always a little bit of, what do I do now? Like, this thing isn't as good as I thought it was going to be. I mean, I've always known that these things are not as good as you think they're going to be, because I've, experienced them in a past life. that you really want something. Then when you get it, you're like, yeah, it's okay. I don't want to give it up, but it isn't as good as I thought it was going to be. Anticipation is always better than the actual event. The only thing that I've found that is the anticipation is less and not as great as the actual event is the Sajmarg meditations that I've done and gatherings. And I could never predict how great they're going to be, or I could not predict, even if I do, I can't, even if I have a sense of it, it's always better than I thought. And it's always better than I remember. Like when I go to a gathering, it's always better than, other than the one I went with Dodgy took over, I was like, oh, this one sucks compared to the rest of them. And then I knew it was in the decline because it always exceeds my expectations. God will always exceed your expectations. That's just the way it is. But, I've known that stuff. And it's just there, and it's even more prevalent now because all these goals and things that kids are trying to achieve, it's not even going to be possible because the goalposts are always being moved in one way or another. And eventually the goalposts will just be eradicated altogether, right? In one, whether it's AI eradication or some post-apocalyptic type of situation. And I had this thing with my son moved out. And it was unexpected. He moved out quickly. He asked me if it was okay if he could move out. He said he's given 2 weeks notice at his job. His job didn't really need him. It's a job that slowed down. It was seasonal. So they said, no, you can just leave now. And he was gone within a week. And, I could see that he was working up to it, but it happened so quickly. And, there's some sadness that set in. It was, non-intentional sadness. Not that I was sad about it consciously, but it was unconscious sadness or grief. And, my energy levels picked up, and it's just this whole burden of raising your kids. And, my family's a fucking kind of a bummer. I mean, I want an I work for an intergenerational family farm. And, I put a lot of work into the spiritual aspect of the kids' lives, which they don't appreciate. And, I made so many meals. I mean, I changed diapers for like 10 fucking years, right? I mean, just brutal shit. They just, literally and figuratively. And they don't appreciate any of it. There's no gratitude. There's no sense of it. Our relationships are bad to non-existent, so, and there's just no sense on their part. And it's not like I was doing it for that. As a parent, I abhor the stuff, or I don't know, I used to. Now I just don't give a shit, but it's not something I'd be into. When parents try to live vicariously through their kids, they put pressure on their kids to make money and send money back to the family. They want their kids to be child celebrities or great people. And their children's greatness is a reflection of them. And that, they want to show the world how great they are by having their kids become great people. And they brag about their kids. They put pressure on their kids to be the doctor or lawyer or, whatever, celebrity, all that kind of thing, athlete. And I just never was into that, right? Because, I didn't want that when I was a kid. I mean, my parents didn't give it to me because my parents were just basically ignored the shit out of me. We had almost no relationship. We didn't talk at all. I was the last of four, 4 kids and 2 miscarriages, 4 other kids and 2 miscarriages, one before and one after me. So it was like a whole thing. But they had just kind of given up by the time I was around. My older sister's 10 years older than me. But, giving my kids the freedom to do what they were going to do and make of their lives, and not giving them the freedom, that's what you should do. And you just provide everything else. But, the lack of understanding of and appreciation and gratitude, it's a little bit of a bummer. But I've accepted it and, whatever. The job's done. They're on their own. And that part of my life's over. And there's, some, like I said, unintentional sadness. But also it's like a huge relief. But, it turned out as badly as it could. The spiritual gift that the Sajmarg system is, only a few of us really, handful of people, some thousands of people, maybe 10,000 at most, really understand what it is. And we don't understand what it is in terms of all of it, because anything to do with God is beyond a person's mental comprehension. But we get how special it is and how great it's been and, what a miraculous thing it is. And, my kids grew up in it and they don't value it or appreciate it. I mean, it's a real bummer. Again, nothing I can do about it, but that's just, the way it is. And then the other things, the opportunity to be on a homestead, some of these other things, they just don't appreciate like any of the stuff, right? And, there's whatever, kids are entitled and they have their own thing. And, I only grew to appreciate some of the things my parents did. But, mostly my parents were incompetent. But sometimes you don't see it till later on. But either way, that just, in terms of an outcome, it's the worst possible outcome. And, it's predictable, and given how fucked up my ex was and, how incompetent I am as a, person in a social situations and whatever, like it just, it was inevitable. And I didn't come from a good family, and my ex didn't. So it's hard to, figure out how to be a good parent when all you have seen is shitty parents, not just in my family, but just in general. But, like even if it works out great, then you're just sadder when it ends, right? It's like, the more love you have with your spouse, the more things that you love in the world, the harder it is to let it go when you're on your way. It's a fucking either way, all this kind of stuff. But there's just, a futility to existence because you're going to die. It's a temporary situation, and nobody thinks about it that way. And nobody prepares for what's going to happen next. Like we're not trained to think about it in any way. Like, as the years go by and you get older, the time flies. Like it's just so fast. These years now are, that's the other thing. Like it's, let's say I live till my 90s, I have 30 more years. And so that's a third of my life is left. But it's going to go way faster than the other parts. And, a lot of it is, like I said, you see the same things over and over again, and they're nice and they're great. I like going out. Like I'm a little bit of a kid at heart. Like there's this weeping cherry tree, next to our house. And, I don't know what it's called. It's a cherry tree that it blossoms. There's no fruit on it. But it's, it makes this cool place. And I look at it like all the time and go, why haven't I built a fort in there? Right? Like I think about forts and building forts quite a lot for someone, who's an adult. And, I was just cutting the lawn, and there was a pickerel frog that was in the lawn. It was jumping. And, a couple of years ago, I would have jumped down and tried to catch it. But, like, I don't do that anymore because I've caught enough, and I've seen them more, like it was a new thing. But, it's, as you get older, you just see that there's a pattern to all this, and, and it just means less and less. And if you're living in the right way, it's just all like, it's great. You see it for what it is, but it's not, as impressive as it was when you were a kid. Whatever the things that you see in life, sunsets and, beautiful things. You can admire them, and that they're, there's a limited number that you're going to see from now on. When you're a kid, you can't, as you get older, you're even in your 20s and 30s, death, unless somebody dies in your sphere of activity, one of your friends or your sibling dies or something, even your parents, and then you start seeing, death is inevitable, and then you start, thinking about things in a different way. But there's just a futility to physical life, and certainly now because, everyone's just kind of waiting for what we all know we deserve to happen. What we all know is coming is going to happen. And whether you're anticipating it with enthusiasm or you're dreading it or whatever it is, it's still like it's just hanging over our heads, right? And more so than, normal death and normal, changes. Where there's going to be widespread changes and everyone's, waiting for Damocles' sword to come down. And so, like I said, it's not necessarily depressing, but it is what's happening. Like it's just, something we have to accept. Anyways, let me wrap this one up here.